more questions than answers at this stage, but what is clear is that the US has made a stand here about Ukraine and NATO. Let's bring in Olena Prokopenko, Senior Fellow of the German Marshall Fund for the United States. Olena, thank you for joining us here on France 24. We appreciate your time. We've had Donald Trump speaking with Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. There's many things moving here in the story, but of course, Pete Hegseth, the US Defense Secretary, saying that out loud, Ukraine should give up on joining NATO. What's your take on the situation?
We need to remember that Ukrainian society, Ukrainian people are paying the highest price for their freedom. So nobody wants peace more than we do, more than Ukraine does. But Ukraine cannot accept peace at any cost. It's critical that Ukraine's allies make sure that all the red lines that Ukrainian leadership has been insisting on are observed. And those red lines are, of course, the credible security guarantees, which primarily include NATO membership. And I believe that Ukrainian allies, primarily the US in this case, should return to the negotiating table on this point. And from what we're seeing in the media today, the upcoming meeting between President Zelensky and US Vice President Vance and State Secretary Mark Rubio may include the NATO point on the agenda. So we are very hopeful about that, because NATO membership is really the most effective and the cheapest way to guarantee not only Ukraine's lasting security and peace, but also lasting peace in Europe. These red lines should also include Western troops on the ground. They should include uninterrupted supplies of weapons that Ukraine has been asking for a very long time. And also, we should not forget about the channeling of Russia's assets of $300 billion that are frozen in the West, that are available to the West, that should be confiscated and should be channeled into Ukraine's recovery. These lines, these red lines, should be observed before any negotiations can start, because otherwise we will end up not with a sustainable peace, but with a mere break that will end very soon with Russia regrouping and attacking again. And I'm concerned that this new attack...
I think, Olena, that most other countries listening to what you're saying will actually agree with you. But the fact of the matter is that the United States, now with Donald Trump in charge, seems to have taken a very different perspective. And when you hear Hegseth say that Ukraine has to give up on getting back to the 2014 borders, that is, accept that Crimea will remain Russian, accept that the Donbass won't be in Ukraine again. I mean, again, what does that leave you feeling?
Well, this is very disappointing to hear from the new U.S. administration, but the good news, I think, is that we see those statements and those positions on Ukraine and the offer regarding Ukraine peace negotiations still being in the making. And I believe that during this week's Munich Security Conference and the bilateral meetings between Ukrainian leadership and the U.S. leadership that are scheduled, we can see some development. And I believe that there is still room for changing the U.S. position here, because again, I think it needs to be understood that it's not. We are not talking about a peace deal that will take us through another 2 years or so. We are talking about a peace deal that would stand the test of time, and will actually bring sustainable peace in Europe. So I think it's in everyone's interest, in the U.S. interest primarily, to make sure that Ukraine does not lose to Russia on Trump's watch.
Indeed, we've obviously read about Volodymyr Zelensky speaking to the Guardian newspaper in an interview published today about the need for Patriot missiles. There's also talk from Zelensky of a land swap in some way, shape or form. Clearly, some kind of leverage using the Kursk region of Russia in some kind of exchange. Do you see that being a viable proposition? Do you think Vladimir Putin would actually be willing to give up the land that his troops have taken in Ukraine just to get back Kursk?
Yeah, unfortunately, earlier today, we heard the Kremlin completely declining President Zelensky's tentative proposal to swap those lands. And you would think that this offer would be in everyone's interest. But I believe what Kremlin is trying to tell us is that it's not interested in peace. It's interested in terrorizing Ukraine into submission, into capitulation. Just this morning, Ukraine was attacked again with multiple ballistic missiles, and not the military objects, not the military targets were affected or attacked. Civilian infrastructure and residential areas were specifically attacked on purpose. I mean, what does it say about Kremlin's interest in negotiating peace? It is interested in terrorizing Ukraine into submission, in making Ukraine seize its territories, but not only territories. It's really not about the territory. It's about Ukraine's sovereignty. Russia wants to deprive Ukraine of its statehood. It's not about Crimea or the east or any of the villages or towns that Russia has occupied. It's about seizing Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. And Russia will not stop at Ukraine. We know that.
So in that sense, what is the leverage that Zelensky has to maybe get Trump to see his point of view? Is it these rare earth minerals that Trump is so interested in getting his hands on, the trillions of dollars of worth of these rare earths that are under Ukrainian soil? Could that be perhaps the best card in Zelensky's hand right now?
Again, I think that these negotiation points will be changing as we speak. But I saw that President Zelensky already accepted this potential offer from the White House. He already confirmed that the draft deal that U.S. Finance Minister brought to Kiev this afternoon is something that Ukraine will consider. And I think Ukrainian leadership has been very open and accommodating towards various solutions on the table, because again, we are paying the highest price. We want peace, but whatever deal is achieved, rare earths or not, it should include security guarantees if we don't want this war to spill over to the larger Europe very soon.
Olena Prokopenko of the German Marshall Fund, co-chair of the Transatlantic Committee on Ukraine. Thank you for joining us and sharing your analysis with us here on France 24. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed, Olena Prokopenko. We're watching for all developments, of course, on the situation in Ukraine, both diplomatically and on the ground.